Some title reigns only last as long as a cup of coffee. Such was the case for Motor City, dropping the titles in a New York minute. The silver lining is Motor City's 42-day title reign is actually 14 days longer than DIY's 28-day title reign. BC's just trying to find any power of positivity in Hunter Helmsley's wacky booking of the tag team division. It was Tiffy time last night, not Naomi-Time. This left a lot of fans frustrated, saying Tiffany's got the briefcase. Why would she have to go another step closer to this championship? What about Naomi? We'll talk all about it. LA Knight's obnoxious booking hits an all-new low. What are they doing with LA Knight? What was that segment? We'll talk about it. Cody pins Gable with one boot on. Chelsea Green literally gets squashed with no shoes on. Poor Apollo. The poor dude finally got the call to show up to work. He's all happy, and then that happens to him. We'll talk Apollo. And as first reported right here on the channel last week, Michael Cole confirms the brand split is over under the guise of a transfer portal ahead of the big Netflix move. Again, we reported that right here on the channel. BC broke that news to you a week ago. And Michael Cole is now telling you, don't go by any brand split, because wrestlers are going to be appearing on any which show as they see fit. We'll talk all about it. It's all coming up on today's Amped Up, featuring the SmackDown review for 12/6/24. The only thing left to do besides drink a lot of coffee is to get amped up. Let's do this. So I will say the last 3 weeks for SmackDown for the Blue brand, I feel like there's a good flow to these shows. I'm not saying they're good in totality, right? It's still Hunter Helmsley's booking, so you're going to get all the stuff that doesn't make sense, all the confusing BS, all of the just obnoxiously bad booking. You're still going to get that. But there's a certain flow the last 3 weeks. Actually, the last two SmackDowns I thought were decent to even good for the most part. This was the weaker of the 3 weeks. But still, there's a flow to it. I can't really put it into words. And as a host to a show, and as somebody who has a podcast, it's rare for me to say I can't put it into words, but I can't. But there's a flow where I can put the remote down, and I might not be able to be captivated by what I am witnessing because the creative is just not to that level. So I might not be captivated, but I can at least do what Dustin Rhodes just asked us to do, right? I can at least enjoy pro wrestling for those 2 hours and not feel like it's a chore, right? So I can put that remote down, and SmackDown at least has a flow to it. The creative and all of that, and the decision making and the booking, that's another story. But that's a step in the right direction. I don't feel like SmackDown has been a chore the last 3 weeks. Again, last night, unfortunately, was the weaker of the 3 shows. But it's a step in the right direction, like I said. The big story last night was the big title change. And this is what I mean. It's not just a flip-flopping of titles, guys. I mean, there has been so many different sets of champions this year alone that you'd have to really think. I'm not saying everybody has to hold titles for like a Gunther or a Roman Reigns status, right? Length of time. You ain't got to hold it for a year or 3 years. But it does get confusing when you're just constantly passing these titles around, whether it's Grayson Waller and Austin Theory or The Bloodline or DIY or now Motor City. And everybody to hold these titles, and DIY holding it for 28 days, and then Motor City getting it for 42 days. And that's not even the issue that I have, right? Some titles change at a more alarming rate than others. That's fine. The issue is the placement of these title changes, right? For the longest time, a lot of these tag title matches are not even at PLEs, guys. They're on SmackDowns before the PLEs and Raws after the PLEs. But they don't put these title matches usually anymore on the actual PLE pay-per-views. So right there, you're telling your audience the division is pretty secondary, right? There's no reason to believe it's prestigious because the company doesn't look at it as such. So the placement of it not even being at pay-per-views, that's one thing. Then you say, well, BC, titles are going to change hands on the actual shows. It makes it spontaneous. It makes the shows feel special. All right. Not every time, though, is what I'm saying, right? Don't be afraid to put a tag title match on a pay-per-view once in a while. But not just on the shows, guys. It's where they place it. Like, this was not at the start of the show where there's your biggest audience. It wasn't in the main event where it's the most intriguing. It wasn't even at the start of the second hour, which is still the middle of the show. That's not good for a title match, especially when you're going to have new champions. But it was in the middle of the second hour. So, I mean, literally middle of this show, they put a title match where you're going to crown new champions. And then they saved the Cody Rhodes Gable exhibition for the main event. So, and on top of that, it wasn't even the original match. Profits were supposed to be going for the titles. They get attacked backstage. And before you know it, there's an impromptu match and new hot potato champions. So that's what I mean. It's everything. When you lump it all together, it should not be shocking that most fans don't look at this division like it's anything to care about, like it is actually prestigious, until they start making the right decisions, because there's good tag teams in this division, but that doesn't make a division. You can have all the finest ingredients in the world to make a tortellini soup. Until you put it all together, you're not going to get that tortellini soup. You're going to have tortellinis that are frozen. You're going to have mushrooms that are still in the fridge. All the cheeses you want to sprinkle on top, right? That still has to all come together. Otherwise, they're still packaged. The ingredients have to come together. They're there inside those walls of WWE. They have to put them together. So that was the big story last night. Motor City, 42-day title reign coming to an end to the team that only held it for 28 days. So maybe they're going to try to beat their record, try to get 29 days this time. That was the big story. Again, a lot of people upset about Tiffany Stratton winning. I listen, you guys know how I feel about Tiffany and Naomi, so I understand both sides. But I don't want to just redo another cold open teaser. Let's go over the show. We'll go more in depth. But I did want to say there was a flow to this show. That's a step in the right direction. SmackDown has been giving us that. Raw is still left field with a hockey stick. I don't know what they're doing. Somebody take the hockey stick away from Raw, give them an actual glove, and let's try to get those 3 outs, man. Catch those pop-ups. Because that hockey stick ain't going to do it for you. We start this show off, Michael Cole literally announcing a laundry list of injuries from War Games. War Games last Saturday. Cole is actually listing this. It was like, wow. When you put it like that, Bronson Reed out with a broken foot. He will require surgery, unfortunately. We wish the best to Bronson. Tonga Loa out with a torn bicep. Required surgery. We wish the best for Tonga Loa. And Jimmy Uso out with a broken toe. He will be back quicker than the other. I think it was Jimmy, right? Oh, my bad if it was Jay. I put Jimmy in my notes, but I'm having a second thought on it, but I think it was Jimmy. I'll put an asterisk for it, guys. If it is Jay, I'm sure somebody will go ahead and correct that for me. But I'll say Jimmy Uso. That's what I put in the notes. With a broken toe. He'll be back much quicker, by the way. You can actually wrestle with that depending on the severity. So I wouldn't be shocked if Jimmy's right back at it next week. But we'll see. They'll probably keep him on the shelf for a bit. There's no reason to have Jimmy or Jay out there when it's not needed. So that's how we started the show. The laundry list of all of the injuries from Survivor Series War Games. And then we cut to all of the wrestlers. Now, this was hilarious, man. I legit LOL, like legit. All the wrestlers are coming into the arena, right? Street Profits look badass, man. Montez is mean mugging, just all in black. Dawkins looks like he's ready for a fight. B-Fab is like, dude, I'm rocking with the boys. Let's go. They looked badass. It's a shame that they didn't have that match last night because I was like, oh, dude, Street Profits. And then they cut to, this was hilarious. So Apollo is going through the security checkpoint. All right, behind him is Solo. Solo Sikoa is coming into work after, I don't know, looking like he just went through war. So he's clocking in, right? He's going through security. And Apollo is just all chipper. He's smiling and taking his time, happy to be there. And Solo is, we've all been there, right? You clock into your 9 to 5 and you got the one dude that's so happy to be so chipper. He probably jumped out of bed 4 hours before his shift. You probably just crawled out of bed feeling like you just went through war, right? And then you see Chipper Chad and you just want to smack Chipper Chad upside his dome piece. Well, that was Solo. So Solo, just impatient, bumps into him right past him through security. And he bumps right into Apollo. And Apollo's like, dude, what? And before Apollo can even utter a word, Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu, who are also behind Solo, they end up attacking Apollo at the security checkpoint. So, I can see I can come to Solo's defense on this. I can come to both, right? Solo's defense, because again, you got Chipper Chad, who you just want to just move so I can clock in and get to what I have to do. Solo's not happy anyway with what happened last Saturday at Survivor Series. So, you just got Chipper Chad. Apollo is just all happy to be there. And Solo is just impatient, and he's like, it's like the dude that has worked at the Walmart warehouse for 15 years. Never given the opportunity to drive the forklift. One day everybody calls out and the boss is like, you now have the keys to the forklift today. After 15 years in that warehouse, that employee finally gets the forklift. Apollo got called to work. He's all happy and Solo's like, get out of my way, dude. So I understand Solo, but I can also come to the defense of Apollo because he did get the call. He's ecstatic. He is so happy. He's probably calling everybody, guys, I got called to work. I'm going to be on TV, USA Network, 8 p.m. Tune in. I'm going to be on TV. I got called to work. Apollo. He finally was going to be used. And that's why he was smiling. He's smiling ear to ear, happier than a pig in shit, waving at everybody. He was so happy to be at work. He was going to be on TV. He was going to be used. He got the call from Hunter. And then that happened to him. He gets absolutely annihilated before he can even get through the security checkpoint. What's hilarious. Much love to Apollo, but that's funny. The PC found it funny. Anyway, that's how we started the show. A laundry list of injuries and Apollo getting destroyed. Now, then we go to the actual ring itself, where Cody Rhodes would kick it off on the stick. He would ask the crowd in attendance, "Oh, what do you want to talk about?" And before everybody could start shouting what they wanted to talk about, right? One guy was talking about, what do you want to talk about? He's yelling pizza toppings. Another guy wanted to talk Lowe's or Home Depot. Which do you prefer, right? People are shouting out what they want to talk about. Best Christmas movies of all time, right? People are yelling out Home Alone, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Christmas Story. So everyone's shouting out, but before Cody can tell everybody what he wants to talk about, here comes Chadathan Gable and the American Made. I almost called him American Academy. American Made. Ivy Nile and the Creeds. Ivy had some wacky boots, by the way. Give it some time. Sethington Rollins will be wearing those boots to the ring in the near future. Ivy. Right? I don't know if Becky has them in her closet, but if not, Sethington is going to raid Ivy's closet. Those are some wacky boots. Anyway, Gable ends up coming to the ring. Cody and Gable staring at one another, engaged in a back and forth promo. I loved this. Gable and Cody, yes. I only wish this was a massive storyline beginning, right? Multi-month, multifaceted, a lot of time and effort put into it. Instead, guys, right, with no Kevin Owens looming is what I'm saying, right? That's Cody's feud right now. It's not Chad Gable. They could always try to go back and revisit this, but we already saw everything we needed to see last night. Saw the match, saw a clean finish. So even if you try to revisit this, it's not going to be the same. So that's my only wish, that this was an actual beginning to a good storyline and a good feud with no Kevin Owens looming. But instead, this was literally just to get to a one-on-one match for later in the night, the main event. So that sucked. You know what I mean? Because I knew this was just a one-off, and I know they ain't going to have Cody lose this, obviously. So it was just Gable putting together another good match and a good promoted match and just taking the L like Hunter always has him do. So, but man, if it was the beginning of something really, really cool, it would have been so badass. But it was all just for a one-off. And when it was all said and done, Cody would just need one boot on to actually beat Gable. So, take that info and do with it what you will. We will go over that in just a few minutes. That was the main event. Then we go to Michael Cole announcing a talent portal, which is why Gable was allowed to be on SmackDown. So from here on out, Cole says that talent will be moving around brands. BC broke this to you guys last week, and I take immense pride in breaking that news, because that's one of those stories where, you know, there's those stories where BC will break it, and it'll take a lot of other actual journalists in the pro wrestling world that are sourced. It'll take them hours before they get it, right? Like the Vince McMahon story that I broke several months ago when Vince was still kind of looming. And Vince showed up to Raw in Boston. And this is when he was on the outs at that point. And he showed up in Boston. Now, I got that double verified pretty early in the day. It took hours for everybody else, all the other journalists, and everybody was trying to tap into their sources that are in the know. They couldn't get it double verified, guys. And it wasn't until about an hour or two before Raw where maybe it was like Sean Ross or somebody finally got a verification on it. Right before Raw went live, that Vince was in Boston for the Raw taping. BCR had already broken that. There's stories like that often that I will find out hours before, and that feels pretty good. But stories like this, when I broke last week that they're internally, they have done away with the brand split. There is none. And then they actually announce this portal on air a week later. Stories like this where nobody was able to get that double verified for the entire week. And I believe it was never a reported story until Michael Cole actually announced that last night. So, yeah, I'm very proud of my boys. That's what I mean. When you can get away from sources in Stamford or just within the walls with the pro wrestlers and the suits and ties that are within the companies, I'm telling you, NXT down in Florida, it's like high school down there. And that's where all the good gossip and loose lips are. And you're going to get a lot of info. So BC is very fortunate to have my sources down there in Florida. And that's pretty cool that, I got that double verified a week ago. And I did not think that they were going to announce it, though, like this. I thought, just like I reported it, internally there's no more brand split. And I told you guys what's going to happen now. You're just going to see wrestlers showing up every which way. They decided, and maybe it's because of the story that we broke, but they decided to kind of turn this into this portal situation. So at least there's an excuse, right? And this was basically Cole saying, guys, just like be lenient on this brand split idea, because you're going to see a lot of wacky stuff going forward. And I think they felt the need to do that, right? With Netflix coming up and WrestleMania season and Rumble. And they're just like, dude, this brand split is hindering us. We already don't have enough heels on this show or enough faces on this show. We're having face versus face matches and heels versus heel matches because we don't have anything in line. Let's just move everybody. So this was already in the making, like I said. I broke that story a week ago that internally they weren't even looking at the brand split as a real thing anymore. I just thought it was just going to be you were just going to start seeing that every which way on the shows. I did not think Michael Cole would announce it like this, but he had no choice. If Gable is just the start of it, you got to tell your audience why all these wrestlers from the red brand are showing up to the blue and blue to the red and NXT showing up and Just tell everybody what it is, man. There is no brand split. You can call it a talent portal. You can say it's because of Netflix or this and that. Just say you didn't have your ducks in a row. You haven't for the longest time, because there has not been a brand split for the longest time. We all know that. So if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. Very happy that I was able to break that a week ago, and a big salute to my people down in Florida. Once again, knocked it out of the park. Grand Slam status. Also, right after Cole announced that, Jesse Ventura was seen in the front row. Jesse Ventura will actually be on commentary for Saturday night's main event next Saturday. How badass is that? For any, older, not old, but older fan, you remember Saturday night's main event was Vincent Kennedy McMahon and Jesse Ventura on the headset and behind the mic. And it was so awesome, man. Jesse Ventura's got that one-of-a-kind voice on that mic on commentary. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a wild ride. He doesn't really bite his tongue, so we'll see. Jesse Ventura, man, it was good to see him last night, front row. Next up, it's Tiffy time, not Naomi time. I know. A lot of fans upset. A lot of fans, if you like BC, like I put Tiffany Stratton on a pedestal because she's so damn good this early on in her career. Could you imagine if she sticks with this? I know she signed like many with Paradigm, the talent agency and management company, so she could go Hollywood at any moment. But if she sticks around, I mean, Tiffany Stratton has one of the best female careers we've ever seen ahead of her. Because this is early on, and she's this good at getting reactions like she's getting. So I've always put Tiffany Stratton on a pedestal, and I always will. But I also put Naomi on a pedestal, and I always will. This was a Tiffany Stratton versus Elektra Lopez versus Naomi triple threat match for the Women's US Championship. It's the first round of the tournament. Stratton would pull this one off by hitting the prettiest moonsault ever on Lopez for the W. Now, again, Tiffany winning will never be a bad thing in my book. However, asterisk, Naomi losing, I will always have an issue with. So, it's the old saying, two things can be true at once. I love seeing Tiffany get the W. I hated seeing Naomi pick up that L, even though it was Lopez to get the literal L. It'll go down in the books as Naomi picking up an L as well. It's triple threat. So this led a lot of people, including BC, man. It ran across my dome piece as well, that Tiffany has the briefcase. So there's no reason to even have her in this tournament, let alone beating several individuals to keep going further into it. So a lot of fans are like, what are you doing to Naomi? As if the booking wasn't all over the place anyway. She can't even advance for a mid-card title. Tiffany's already got the briefcase for the championship, the women's championship. Naomi can't even advance just to get an opportunity at the mid-card title. That's where fans are coming from, and I totally understand that, because again, Tiffany has the briefcase, so it's just weird to even make this match. Now, something happened backstage, guys. But again, I did think that was going to go to Naomi last night. I thought Hunter was going to throw Naomi a bone because Tiffany has the briefcase. That just didn't happen. And a lot of fans not happy with Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I'm just going to leave it at that. But backstage, man, Jade, Bianca and Naomi were being interviewed. And Bianca is vowing to find out what happened to Jade and who attacked Jade. And Bianca, just the way that she was like, yeah, we're going to find out. Just the way she was, I started for the first time to go, maybe it was Naomi. Now, I'm not saying I need to see a heel Naomi. I just need face Naomi to be booked properly. And I can't say that Naomi doing the heel turn or the one to attack Jade is the best way you could go creatively. However, I'm willing to let this play out because the way Naomi was kind of acting, a little bit shady. Just a little shady. It could be Naomi. Now, I'm not saying that's a reason to keep her from winning the title. right? You could still have her go on and do big things, win the championship, get all the adulation, and then all of a sudden everyone finds out it was her and they turn on her. She's pissed, but at least she's got gold. So, yeah, just very interesting. We'll keep tabs on why Tiffany would advance into this and then why Naomi did not. And if they're going to try to continue this Naomi attack on Jade, if that is the case. Now, next up, I had to conduct some side business. So I missed what happened over the next, I would say, about 5-ish minutes. But when I returned to the office studio, I saw Piper Niven. It was Belair hitting Piper Niven with a KOD on top of Chelsea Green. So so I have no idea how that was set up because, again, I was on side business for 5 minutes, but I have no idea how it was set up. I have no idea why Chelsea had no shoes on. Chelsea had her heels off and just middle of the ring taking a KOD. Or Piper was taking it on top of her. So I don't know, man. Belair was kind of beaten down, so maybe the heels beat her down a little bit. But I have no idea why they were in the ring, because they had nothing to do with Naomi, Elektra, and Tiffany, unless they came out at the tail end of that match. I have no idea. So, just full disclosure, I don't know how that was set up, but Belair, KOD, Piper Niven on top of Chelsea Green, a shoeless Chelsea Green. So, Super Bianca is back. A lot of people feel like she's booked like John Cena sometimes, just kind of hulks up, warriors up, Super Cena. And she just takes out Chelsea and Piper. And that's actually, then we went backstage after that, and that's when Bianca and Naomi were doing that interview. And I don't know, Naomi, man, I don't know, maybe it was Naomi. Top of the second hour, L.A. Knight. No, not this type of booking, bro. L.A. Knight starts hour number 2. Andrade interrupts Knight's request for Shinsuke Nakamura. So he's calling out Shinsuke, I want the rematch right now, la la la. And Andrade comes out, and it's so odd. What do you do? It's a face and a face, first of all. So how hyped do you think the fans are going to go when his music hits and like, oh, it's Andrade, he's going to face LA Knight? For the longest time, it seemed like there was only 4 people in the mid-card, right? Andrade, Santos, Mello, and LA Knight. So when I heard Andrade's music, I'm like, oh, here we go. There's nothing. And Andrade goes to say something to LA Knight. And as if that's not weird enough, Andrade and LA Knight, no, I think it was the Bloodline first, the bootleg Bloodline. They attack Andrade and LA Knight. So the Bloodline comes out and attacks LA Knight. And again, Andrade. And then Shinsuke appears in the ring out of nowhere. I don't know where the hell he came from, but he could have just stayed home. He could have literally saved an hour of his night and not put on all the makeup because he was just out there to look at the Bloodline, and then he quietly he hightails it. He takes off. He's like, I don't want any piece of this. You guys beat him up. So Shinsuke shows up out of nowhere, and then he just leaves, and then LA Knight and Andrade continue to get beat down a little bit. It was weird booking, man. I just don't understand how you have LA Knight lose the title like he did, and the best booking you have afterwards, where you really got to rebound LA Knight, and that's the best you got? Andrade's out there, Bloodline, LA Knight gets his ass whooped. It was weird, man. If you actually saw it in real time, you know what I'm talking about. It was very odd, man. If you got a creative dome piece, you're probably thinking, if I had the booking pen, that's not what you would have seen. Afterwards, Solo gets on the mic and declares that the Bloodline is not done. He says he is tired of everyone not taking them seriously. He's tired of everyone laughing at him. He's still your tribal chief. Acknowledge him. All the things. And he still has, and he said this, right? I told you guys that they're going to make this a story. This is what we were hearing backstage. I was right on that report. They're going to try to make this whole Roman and Solo thing about that Oompa Loompa, or whatever you call it, Uva Luva, Oval Office, whatever it's called. You guys know. The tribal lay. It's going to be about that. And I told you, if done correctly, it can work, but we just saw that with, was it Jay versus Roman last year, I believe. And it was for the title, but that was secondary. It's not often you say that. But the story was about that tribal lay, right? The Oompa Loompa. Oofalooba. I can't get that. Whatever it is. Oofaloofa? Opaloofa? It's going to bug me. Anyway, it's about that, right? That's what Jay and Roman are really fighting for. The title is like the cherry on top. So they're going to try to do that here because nobody has a title, Solo and Roman. So it's going to have to all be about the Oompa Loompa. Tribal lay. So they really are trying to focus on that. At the end of this promo, he literally holds it up. He says, I still have the Oompa Loompa. So the Oompa Loompa is the little things in Wizard of Oz, aren't they? The little dwarfs. Oofa Loofa. But if I say loafa, then I'm thinking about those things in Bath and Body Works. You know, the shower balls, the soft. Aren't those called loafas? This review just went off the tracks. Let's place it back on track. Let's go to the championship. Tag titles on the line. DIY Motor City. Supposed to be the Profits. What the heck happened? So DIY defeats Motor City. Profits got attacked backstage. That's why they were not in this title match. That's what we're told. That's what we saw. They're laid out. What? Maybe there's something bigger at play you want to believe, right? BC, let it play out. They're going to get there. They'll probably get it from DIY. Who knows, right? There's so many things. There's an issue with this, right? Street Profits were turning heel at a time where all these other teams are. On the red brand, New Day just turned heel. Over here, DIY is overshadowing Street Profits' heel turn. So now you're going to tell me, don't worry, they're going to be tweeners, BC. They're not really going to be heel. They're going to get some cheers. They're going to get some boos. They're just going to get a reaction. It's kind of what Hunter wants to do with Gunther and Braun Breaker. That's his new thing, BC. Well, that's not the right way to book. It's a horrible way to book. It's why we had Roman Reigns forced for 5 years when we knew there was potential there, but just turn the dude heel so we can all jump on board. And for 5 years, Vince just remained stubborn. No, we just want a reaction. Well, it's not fun for everybody then. So a tweener, Street Profits? But that's what we got because DIY went full heel last night. Not just Tommaso, John Gargano as well. So it completely overshadows the Profits. And you can't tell me to let it play out because the tag division is... H never puts any care into it. So until I start to see that, I can't give it the benefit of the doubt, unfortunately. So... let's get back to the match itself. Again, new tag title holders. Johnny Gargano hits a low blow, and then Tommaso with the pin. Motor City loses their championships after holding the titles for just 42 days, which again is 14 days longer than DIY's 28-day reign. So... if you add both reigns, DIY Motor City, you have, let's do some Steiner math, 68, you have a 70 days, so an average of 35 days, basically a month apiece. And then you look at Grayson Waller and Theory's title reign. Bloodline probably was the longest, right? That probably was the longest of the, I have no idea. It's interesting. This division is a mess. I want to say insert Street Profits, but they're laid out. We don't know what we're doing. Hunter could sabotage it. For Montez speaking up, we got to be careful with this. There could be a little punishment here for Montez. You know what I mean? In the Profits. It's almost like, all right, we were going to give you a badass heel turn, but you know what? Instead, we're going to give it to DIY. Because now, even if you want to keep them as tweeners, they just got overshadowed by DIY. I mean, how do you have them come back? Is it going to be a triple threat match for the tag titles yet again? Is the Profits, who should be full throttle heel by now, going to get the titles from another heel team? I'm just trying to make sense of it, guys. That's all I'm trying to do. I mean, you lay out the profits. You have this impromptu match. You literally put it in the middle of the show. Middle. Not the start of the show, not the end of the show, not the main event, not even the top of the second hour. Middle of the show in obscurity, and you have the titles change hands. In an impromptu match with an impromptu team, which overshadows profits in the long run. You guys know I'm right. I mean, I'm putting the puzzle pieces where they go. I didn't create the puzzle. I'm just putting the pieces where they belong. Maybe the person that created the puzzle just got it wrong. Hunter Helmsley. Weird. I mean, if I'm not going to, in this review, like congratulate DIY or anything like that. We just saw them win titles months ago. They already won the titles. They held it for 28 days. They had one defense, I believe, one match. They just lost it. So now what? Are we all supposed to be like, we're so happy, DIY? No, man. The division is such a mess. And on top of that, DIY 28 days on that, but for the 42-day title reign of Motor City, they only had 2 matches, guys. 2 matches since they won the titles, and in that 42-day span, they've had 2 matchups. 2. It's not a title reign. So again, you have to ask the question, what are these reigns for? Why would you put the titles on DIY for 28 days? You're admitting you didn't have a plan. And then 42 days for Motor City when they basically just got to the roster. And then they lose it like this in the middle of the show. And again, you're admitting you just didn't have a plan. So how many times does Hunter have to tell you he doesn't have a plan for any of this? This tag division is a mess. We have to get it fixed. It starts with making it feel prestigious. Put these matches on pay-per-views once in a while for the titles. Well, if you gotta have them on the show, maybe the main event, or here's a crazy concept, the start of the show. After you have something really good to captivate us from the beginning, right? Something's happening in the parking lot, or, a badass promo segment that's really igniting a feud, and then you go to the championship match. I understand that. You just don't want to, welcome everybody, bell rings, and we have a match. I can't stand that. This was funny. This was actually really funny. So Kevin Owens is supposed to be interviewed by Michael Cole. Instead, you have Owens demanding that Cole comes to the car that he's in the lot. And he's like, no, you come out here. I'm right here. I'll let you in. So Cole has to go outside, get into Kevin Owens' car, and they have an interview. And Owens ended up getting pissed, kicks Cole out of the car as if it's like a relationship. And the dude got pissed. They had an argument. He boots the girl out of the car. Cole is like the chick, and he got Das Boot. It was funny. Kevin's like, don't call me later or whatever. It was hilarious, man. Cole gets booted from the car. Kevin drives off. And it was a cool little setup because you think he's driving off, but Owens didn't actually go anywhere, or he just went around the corner, grabbed a cup of coffee, came right back because the main event was Cody Rhodes versus Chatterton Gable of American Made. And this, man, if this was a story in a feud, Gable and Cody, yes, please. Instead, this was a one-off, and Gable, when it was all said and done, would be looking up at the lights. Cody Rhodes defeats Chad Gable via Crossroads pinfall in the main event. Gable sold that finisher, by the way, that Crossroads, if you guys saw it, he sold that like a true champion, even though he doesn't have a title. This guy bounced off his dome piece to sell that. Cody Rhodes, with one boot on, mind you, one boot on, defeats Chatterton Gable. Post-match, KO hits the ring, and Cody and KO end the show in chaos. It's a brawl. What? Hunter Helmsley booked a brawl on his television show? No, I'm not believing that, dude. There was a brawl on a Hunter Helmsley show. Come on, man. Of course, we're having some fun with that. A Hunter Helmsley show usually has about 2 to 3 brawls a show, bare minimum. So, of course, you were going to get a big pull 'em apart brawl, right? And that's how we ended the show. I would have been totally fine if Cody, who just went to war with Gable, and KO attacks him from behind with one boot on, so it's an exposed ankle that he's stepping on. I would have been fine if you ended the show with Kevin Owens just beating the how you doing out of Cody. That's it. You didn't have to have Cody no-sell it, jump up on his one foot, and fucking start beating up Calvin Owens. I mean, it looked like Calvin was out there in the war with Gable. I mean, the show ends with Codithan and Calvin trading bows, and I'm like, wait, Calvin just went to Codithan just went to war, and he's got an exposed ankle, and Calvin was stepping on it. Wouldn't he just be down and out at least for 2 or 3 minutes to end the show? Logic, PC, logic. And the show goes off the air with a Hunter Helmsley Supreme. The Chaotic Brawl. That's what I got for you guys, man. SmackDown 12/6/24. What a wild, awesome week of content on the channel. I enjoyed every single second of creating it for you guys. And the whole process to get these uploads out to you guys. Another week of Amped Up with BC. I really enjoy these shows. And I'm glad I'm able to deliver more consistency with you guys. Have an amped up show basically every day of the week for the most part. Give or take a Sunday or a Wednesday once in a while. But it's good to know that most days you guys can depend on an amped up show. And we can just talk all things pro wrestling, discussions and conversations. And, whether we all agree with one another or not, that's totally fine. But just discussions. And, yeah, man, another awesome week. So, pretty cool that we could end it with a SmackDown that, even though it's not so good creative and booking-wise in totality, there's a flow there, and it's a start. Right now, I'm feeling the blue brand a lot more than I am the red brand. That's something. It's something. It's a starting point. Until next time, and there will be that next time. BC in the unit saying check you. Salut!